Here. Welcome to another episode of Awakened Life Radio. This is a podcast about being a human being, being a spiritual being, having a human experience in a world gone mad. And each week we talk about topics related to healing, embodiment, intuitive cultivation, getting in the flow with life, how to take your inner desires and passions out in the world and to create high functioning relationships and purpose and life purpose. So it's a lot. So we talk to all kinds of people, and I'm so grateful to have on here today Kelsey Elizabeth Myers. Welcome, Kelsay. Hi.
Hi, I'm so excited to be with you, Narayani.
Yay, we're here. We've been planning this. We met at this wonderful women's networking group called the Feminine Frequency Festival. Shout out to Jessica Hadari. And we were in like the final breakout room when they're like, you can stay as long as you want. And like, we were like, okay, like we had time. And so there were like 3 of us or 4 of us that stayed on for like an hour and chatted it up. And that's when I invited you to be on my podcast. And in pure disclosure, we really don't know each other at all. We just
Aside
met.
from that,
Yeah,
aside from our 2-hour conversation, yeah.
Yeah, and like just checking each other out online. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know you. I love your energy. I love your creativity, your creative angle, which is probably just who you are. And I love talking to people that integrate art into spiritual work, because one of the things that I shared, you saw in the post yesterday, was that like I feel stunted as an artist. Like if I sit down and I mean, my vision board's pretty cute for this year. I got to say, we did a great workshop, but I draw or paint like I'm in high school or younger because it didn't develop. And the reason it didn't develop was because I grew up in the 70s, right? So 70s, 80s. So my parents' vision of an artist was a struggling, poor hippie on lots of drugs. Now, I did end up doing lots of drugs when I was younger. Definitely struggled. I can't say that I was poor, but I definitely have given everything away and done some big burn piles. But in that time, we didn't have this world of creativity that we have. We didn't have digital art yet. I mean, barely. We had McPaint for those of us who were lucky to have a computer. So when I bring art into my work with retreats, with women's workshops and stuff, with the stuff my book is on, I actually have had a couple of artists work with me to present and develop alongside my work. It always like fills up the women's experiences and cultivates so much creativity. So I would love to hear, and I have more to share about that, but I want to hear your voice. I'd love to hear from you, like what art and creativity mean to you. We're going to talk about women's empowerment. We're going to talk about embodiment. We're going to talk about the new book that just got a bestseller status that you're in. I saw that email.
Yes.
Yes,
Nice.
yes. But I'd love to start with this creativity element, because I just, especially in American culture, it seems like art is like cool and fun, like maybe when you're younger, in younger generations, like as a kid, but like in America, it's like if you're an artist, that I'm not an artist, so I can't do anything, you know? So I'd love to hear about your relationship with art, how you integrate it with your clients, how you were able to kind of bring that into your like your coaching. You do so many wonderful things around healing. Tell us about what you do and like how it came to be with your work.
Yeah. Thanks for that question about, how we start as creative beings. I think I was very lucky that I grew up in a small town in Michigan called Lowell, Michigan. It's in West Michigan, but it's like a farming community. And we had a local showboat that had these performances and this local community arts center that offered summer classes. And so art was sort of part of what we did growing up. Like a lot of kids were
Mm.
put in those summer classes as something to do. And art was taught in the schools. I grew up a decade after you in the 80s and 90s. And in one of my early elementary school art classes, my mom told me much later in my life that she had asked the art teacher how she could cultivate the arts within me because they both had noticed this talent from that young of an age. And the art teacher had
Mm.
told her to yeah, the art teacher told her always point out what's beautiful and appreciate arts and culture to her. And my mom said she did. And I've just noticed that even in my most, depressed days, I can notice beauty or it gets in because that was really cultivated in me from that young age.
Mm.
Um,
God, you're what a
yeah.
like wonderful, like humble, warm, like pure question for your mom to even ask a teacher. Usually it's teachers being told by the parents like what to do, at least in my experience. Like, did you get why is my kid upset? But like for your mom to go, how can I cultivate for my child? That's really beautiful. What a gift. Yeah. And then did you
Definitely.
find yourself like in artist circles and like hanging out with artists as you got older? Or how was your like social life in school and in college? Were you like in the art crowd?
Well, I was in a lot of different crowds. Actually, my generation was the first generation of helicopter parents. So our parents were super involved in all of our events. So we were a very multifaceted generation. Like, we all did sports and theater and the honors classes, and the football players were in the honors classes and in the musicals and everything. So it was very
Mm.
open in that way. So I really got to experiment with a lot of things. Like I played soccer. I tried to play basketball. I'm like 4'10" and a half. I was the shortest person in my class, and I got paired with the tallest person in my class who was actually also named Kelsey. So I quit basketball after that. But but I tried it out. I tried it out and I was in all the dance classes and writing classes. And so actually that's where my original passion was really
Mhm.
in writing and then doing
Yeah.
my own sketches and creating characters and books that never got published. uh, but just kind of living out those stories. And in college I was a English writing and philosophy double major, and that's when I in my 20s I got very interested in the meaning of life, what it means to be a human. And
Mm.
really just I loved existentialism and
Mhm.
how the different stories that I was reading in literature played out those theories of what it means to be a human and what the meaning of life is.
Mhm. What does it mean to be a human? So what does it mean to be a human?
I'm still figuring it out, but what I've really learned is that it is about being your unique self and living life to
Mhm.
that fullest expression. And we can't
Mhm.
be what we're not because that really doesn't bring happiness or fulfillment or joy, and it's very personality killing. And so I'm all about kind of people just being unique and who they are, and that can really be anything. And that's such a joy to see that no one is really the same, we're all different.
Mhm. Mhm. I was watching I was watching a TEDx today by Ava Pompidero. I think I'm saying her name right. She's the ex-CIA agent who's hit a lot of the like podcasts and YouTube and speaking circuits, or ex-FBI agent rather. And she's really really interesting, and she has this like 4-point teaching, and one of them is that nobody is special. Like you're not special. And if you think you're special, you actually get depressed because nobody understands you. You think that, nobody has the problems that you have. No one suffers like you. Nobody
Mm.
struggles like you. I was watching that this morning and it was fabulous because it's something on the spiritual path that I came to as well over many years, which was all this spiritual ego. And now people call it out. They're like, "Oh, you're so spiritual, but you can't, I don't know, get a job." Like, like that, like spiritual people
Mhm.
are notoriously not really grounded. And with Awaken Life Radio, I really like to explore like what it really means to be having a human experience, to really live, because we're here for such a short period of time. We're truly only here for a blink of an eye in relation to history. And if you believe in the ongoing infinite continuation of life and of spirit, the spirit of life, we're not even just probably here for one incarnation. We're probably here for many incarnations, right? So, but that said, the experience of this life in this lifetime is unique and is unique to you, is unique to me, is unique to all of us. If it wasn't unique, we would all look alike and be doing the same exact thing. How do you foster uniqueness? How do you foster, I don't know, empower? I guess I know you do empowerment work with women. How do you empower women to behold their unique path and the unique self? How do you do that?
Well, I think one of the things that you mentioned is that, people think that people who are spiritual aren't grounded, and a lot of times that's because those people are spiritual, but they're not embodied. And so my work with women is really about bringing them back into their bodies, because so much of the world wants us to be disconnected from our bodies and only in our minds. And as a former philosophy major too, a lot of philosophy is very heady, just like a lot of spirituality is heady. It's mental, it's consciousness.
Exactly.
So the work really is to come back to the body with the consciousness and have them
Hmm.
both be expressed. I think one of the things that I try to get women to also see is there's so much shame and so much um, not necessarily either regret or judgment about where they are and how they should have been there sooner, or how the past is something that could have been changed if only they had their current consciousness. And one of the things I loved about existentialism was this Nietzschean dilemma of being visited by a demon at night who said you have to live your life over exactly as it is, in exactly the same order for all lifetimes. And would you say yes or would you say no? And I think that paradox for me is I don't live my life with regrets, and I don't regret my past. I don't regret my
Mm.
mistakes. I don't judge them. I would choose them over and over again and say yes to that, because I'm living in a way that is honoring who I am and my own self expression.
Mm. So is that something? I have a few follow-up questions and threads I want to get into. The first one is that something that you um, we're in such resonance actually here. We have a very similar um, ideology because my work is also embodiment and I understand what you're saying. And for the sake of our listeners, I like to really extract a couple of layers. So as I ask these questions, I'm asking because I'm thinking about the people who are listening, and I want to like demystify spiritual embodiment work, right?
Mhm.
So when you say that you are living your life exactly how you want to be living it, is that how do you help people feel peace with their life? I guess that's the first question. And then I want to talk about the mind, and then I want to talk about art again. So, but I'll track for you. So, how do you like help women? Like, what do you do with like what do you do? You just do like tracking how you feel, follow the good feelings, like notice what it is that comes up. Let's do clearing and then discover like what feels good to them and feed that. How do you work? Like how is your
Mhm.
methodology? What's your methodology like?
Yes. Well, I do blend a lot of different modalities, but I always start with the clean language that I've been trained in, which is really questions that are designed to bring people into a metaphor and explore their psychology, their stories, whatever is up for
Mhm.
them through a metaphor landscape by knowing, what color things are, what the symbols are, where they are in relation to those things, and creating sort of like a kind of video that's happening in the room, and they can
Give
then
me an
explore
example.
through. So, like, for instance, if somebody is I had a client that really wanted to get in touch with her joy and her passion, and through the questions came to this memory of running with a golden retriever through a field of flowers as a child, and that was what joy and passion was like for her.
Mm.
Or for me, one of the clean questions of when I'm at my best and being of service, that is like what? And I saw this lighthouse that had a light that was like a kaleidoscope mosaic that shone different colors and different fragments out in all directions. And so that, my clients could see their particular color or their particular symbol and then, come to me like that beacon. So, and
Oh, that's
then
some
I
fun magic. Oh, I like that.
right? And
Yeah.
so I then, played with my kaleidoscopes and went and visited some lighthouses since I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. There are lighthouses not too far from here that I could visit, and one was even the lighthouse at Alcatraz, but various
Mm,
different lighthouses to really be in that experience, not just have it on
mhm,
the mind, not just draw it on the page, but be in the physical presence of lighthouses, and what feelings, what sensations, what connections does that elicit. So and in that way,
mm,
I have my clients both have the experiential, the heart feeling, the creative drawing, as well as just
mhm,
the more traditional exploration.
mm. I have a lot that's coming up. Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I think as you know, I did massage therapy for 20 years. So I was literally getting people to feel their body, right? And it was very grounding for me as a practitioner to do body work as well because I had to stay in my body to to pay attention. I would, at the end of the day, often go like, "What's for dinner?" Like I go into like because it's quiet. You're not talking. They're sleeping or blissed out, and I would just come back to my breath, come back to my body. So it's very, very grounding and wonderful, wonderful career. If anyone's thinking about going to massage school and you have that inclination, it's an awesome career, especially from like age 20 to 50 when you have a lot more energy and strength for others for others. And so I'm thinking about this the way that now I work and the way that's different than how you work, but now how I help people like somatically understand what's happening in the body. And when we say back to the mind piece, like don't, like out of the mind and into the body, like overthinking, if you ask any spiritual teachers outside of America, they're like Westerners think too much. Like we have known, they all say that. Ayurvedic teachers say it, and it exasperates your energy because you go into the mind instead, and your nervous system cannot stabilize if you're not grounded. And if you're not stabilized, you're in fight or flight, freeze, or fawn response. Is there a new one? Fight, freeze, fawn. Is there a new one? I think there's a new.
Right. Well, Dr. Ariel Schwartz, who is a trauma specialist based out of Colorado, has expanded them particularly for her work with women, so that she added two. And so,
Mm.
yeah, there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and then I forget the other two. I have to look it up.
Okay.
But they are one is where you actually go into like because of the lack of belonging, you actually go
Mm,
into a more into an even more collapsed state, and it's really about
mm,
that lack of connection and that sense of belonging to a community. And then the other one is
mm.
also again a really deeply collapsed state, but she added two new terms, and I actually find that a lot of women do have those too.
Yeah, it's like a disassociation or completely checking out. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Embodiment work is on the rise, and in this age where we are faced with increased speed in our tech communication with AI, we and 5G, etc., and of course COVID, and of course weather. So we even had like a snowstorm, and they're like, we everyone should stay home, and we're like, what? Like we want to go, but it's in the south, so snow is weird in North Carolina. So I didn't see a plow for like 2 days, but but there's this energy of like like there's this longing that people are feeling for connection and human experiences as we normalize work from home and tech as our like where we spend so much time and energy. So I really appreciate that you're doing embodiment work, and I think it's important to break down like what it means to not be in the mind, because the mind exists in the body. When I used to do body work, for example, I'd be working on someone and I would hear their emotions in their body, which was very interesting because nobody taught me about that. It just happened over years. I'm working on someone, I get to their neck and we're quiet, and I would just hear it be like, ah, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a scream trapped in here, you know? Or even like send full sentences like, I just don't really fit in the and it would be like vibrational, and I'd be like, oh, okay. And they'd be like holding their breath, and the muscle will be holding, or it would be on the belly, or energy points. When I did shiatsu work, they would they would say things, and sometimes it wasn't English, and it wasn't like a form sentence. It would be like, ah, or and
Mm.
I would just breathe with them. And I was like, how do I help people through this? And then I developed my body of work of like, what do you feel in your body? What does that say? What does it sound like? What's the color? Is there any energy that wants to be expressed? How would you say it if it just could just make a sound? And it's very valuable to liberate the thoughts that are actually trapped in the body.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say like, even though I do say, like, don't overthink. My African teachers, I have a lot of African dance and drum teachers. They're always like, you can't stop thinking, just be in your body. And we dance with the drums, which is really grounding. And the benefit is like, your heart is open, you're present with your community, and almost like a mantra, the music starts to replace your thinking. That's how mantras work. The mantra, if you do mantras, the breath and the mantra, you repeat them and they replace your normal thinking mind. Same thing with music. When you're listening to music, maybe it makes you dance or just helps you relax. You give your mind to the energy of the music. So when we do West African dance, it's so beautiful when it all clicks because you can see everyone just like letting go of their thinking body. But I want to say, as someone who usually does say, like, get out of the mind and into the body, like, I get that term, that the mind doesn't go anywhere. Like, you don't stop the mind. And that's why I have like like, meditate now, stop thinking course, because people are like, I can't meditate. And then I'm like, you can, you just don't, you just are stuck thinking that the mind has to completely stop instead of just shifting your attention on the body and the breath and the presence and preparing yourself. So I'm curious, in addition to these metaphorical statements, how you help people to get more in the body, if we can agree that the body does have thought as well, right? But it's a different part of the
Mhm.
brain that is decoding kind of what you feel and what you need or what your truth is in your body than the one that's ignoring it to make a decision, right?
Well, and I think I actually don't believe that meditation is for everyone or that the Zen types of meditation are for everyone. For instance, they're not for me. I prefer insight meditation and movement meditation because there is so
Mhm.
much energy going through my body that I can't just do the sit and empty the mind type thing. And I don't actually think it's beneficial. But I've actually trained in Tamulpa Institute, which is about experiencing multiple things on different levels of experience at the same time and being able to name and identify them all. And so that you're aware of everything that's happening at once on the physical level,
Mhm.
what's happening in the body, what physical sensations, what temperatures, what, if there's
Mm.
goosebumps or if there's energy, sort of what's happening at that sensate level, what's happening emotionally, and what are the feelings, what is happening in the mind, what am I imagining, how am I connecting all of these things that are happening, and to what
Mhm.
purpose. And
Mhm.
so I think, one of the things that I help clients with is really um, being in the story. Like, the goal of my work is not to get rid of their stories, but for their stories to actually complete in whatever way they need. For some stories, it is like
Mm.
a full resolution and integration, but some stories actually
Mhm.
just need to be released. Or, some stories actually do need to be lived out continuously and aren't ready to complete. And, part of that is
Mm.
exploring the body's stories in isolation, like what you were talking about. And, in Tamulpa, we actually explore like the head stories, the spine stories, the
Mm.
shoulder, arm, and hand stories, the stories of the belly, the stories of the feet and legs. And,
Mm.
if those body parts could speak, what would they say? Draw that, explore the drawings through the body to reintegrate that. Do
Mhm.
either creative poetry or a performance ritual or a dialogue to bring that into the
Mm.
mind and to have all of the parts communicate. And I think one of the powers of the clean
Exactly.
language, yeah, one of the powers of the clean language is that it doesn't supply what those things are, but the metaphors actually come from the person's own system. So it can be
Right.
non-human, it can be otherworldly, it could just be a color. And there's allowance for the characters and those different parts of the body to express themselves without a system like IFS that names and says it's part of this category from some
Yeah. No, I don't work
external,
that way either.
you know, yeah.
No, no,
So,
no,
like,
because
that really
everybody's
honors the
different.
system.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you work with my work? I don't just work with the body and see where someone's prayer or intention is in the body or what's coming up. I also work with the energy fields. Do you ever work with the
Mhm.
field outside of the physical form with your
Yeah,
clients?
I have trained in Reiki, and I
Mm.
don't use it very often, but I am a medium and a channel, so sometimes,
Mhm.
particularly when I am doing Reiki sessions, whether distance or, physical,
Mhm.
hands-on, I will see things just because I'm channeling the person's, energetic field.
Mhm. You're
So,
opening up the perception of
mhm.
looking with the eyes of energy. The reason I ask is because I found that in my path, um, when I had a spiritual awakening, I had a Kundalini awakening in 2002. Big Kundalini awakening after many years of yoga and fasting and stuff and Qigong. And I was doing body work and just like full on, like giving dancing, African dance, like full on just opening up my body and my energy as much as possible. Because I always, like you, had a lot of energy. And so, yeah, and I'm 5'2", so I'm not like a huge woman. Like it's all like, a little fireball. But I found that I had a really interesting experience where I started feeling, the kundalini started moving up in my spine. I would look at a crystal and like I would feel it. I could put my hand over food and I could feel how it be in my body. Things like that. Like those gifts were opening. But when I started that was around when I started doing qigong. And when I started doing
Mhm.
qigong, as you probably know, is like they call it like your aura, your wei qi field. And it's like what's around you. It's related to your immune system and it comes from inside. It's like if your energy is strong, your aura is stronger. It doesn't come from like just imagining a light around your body. It comes from strengthening from the inside. And it really shifted things for me when I was doing a lot of sitting. I was feeling all the things, I was feeling all the parts. I was chanting, I was seeing light inside, I was dreaming a lot, I was channeling. And those channels, I was opening all that up. And when I started doing Qigong, and it was also the transmission from Dave Oshana, my teacher, and other Qigong teachers that I met that time, 2002 to 2004. But and Divine Grace and my guru and my ancestor, like it was, everyone was working with me. But when I started shifting my energy from not just inside, but also around my field, it actually helped me to start to be aware of how my relationships were impacting me without just how thinking how they were emotionally, psycho-emotionally impacting me, if that makes sense. And then there was a time when I felt that my field, I didn't really want to mesh it with people. Like I was really protective of it. I would like stand back, and I was very protective. And then after going through more integration and a really wonderful training that I did with a teacher named Dirk Eulenbright, he's on an episode of Awaken Life radio, and he's still teaching. He's wonderful teacher from Denmark. He did a dark room movement practice with us, and I've talked about this on a couple of other podcasts as well. And it was a weekend with Dirk when I felt a big shift and a lifting of the protection that I was putting up. And actually, since then, I don't ever try to protect myself. And unless someone's energy is really off or the smell is uncomfortable, because I have a heightened sense of smell, I'm not afraid of generally merging my energy with people. And I think because of all the isolation we've had in the last few years, 5 years, with COVID and the impact of COVID in our lives, that people are very isolated and they've become really aware of themselves. But the trick is, especially as you start doing embodied conscious work and you see more and you open up more, is how to then start to weave a new perspective into their daily life, which is where I found I started coaching. I wasn't trying to be a coach, but I kind of fell into it after hiring coaches because there was that need for me, and also then reflecting in my clients, to take all these insights and experiences that they would have in private sessions into real life, like what we call off the mat teachings, which is a lot of what my book, What Awakening Map, is about. Because if you're not able to just take it into daily life, it's good for you. You had a realization on top of a mountain. Like, aren't you special? No, it's actually an opportunity to now do things differently. Have you seen, I'm sure you've been in a lot of deep, highly amazing trainings and containers. How have you seen people be able to integrate the shifts inside and into their outer life and make those changes? And when are they unable to make those changes and why?
I think the biggest piece for people who are unable to actually make the changes is because they're not embodied. It either went in at the heart level or the head level or both, but it didn't
Yeah,
actually get to the embodiment. But for the people who are able to really embody and
yeah,
activate those changes, it lasts, and it
yeah.
happens really quickly too, because of,
I
the
think
piece
that's
is the
accurate.
embodiment. Yeah, and I think, one of the things, I love what you were saying, and I did listen to that podcast you were sharing about the dark room experience,
Hmm. Hmm.
that you did earlier.
With Dirk. Hmm.
Yeah, with Derek. But coming out of the conscious dance traditions of movement medicine and open floor and five rhythms, it also
Hmm.
really helps with that, with bringing things not just internally in the body, but in spatial awareness and kind of being with different bodies, playing with the energetics, with kind of meeting hands or different parts of the body.
Right. Hmm. Hmm. Contact
Yeah,
and. Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, but not just contact improv, but just, on the actual just conscious dance floors where it
Yes.
really is about, specific exercises that are teaching people like, you know, meet with a body part. It doesn't actually have to be a hand, but it can be any part of the body and just see what that does and see how far and how close, like moving towards
Right.
and moving away from, and just playing with the kind of proprioception and bringing that interoceptive awareness too. I love that, with somatics we can play with those things and the different levels, and
Yeah.
I think that's something that really is only part of somatic and embodiment work. You don't get that anywhere else.
Except Tai Chi, which I guess is embodiment work. Do you ever do push
Yeah,
hands? Tai
it
Chi? Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really fun. I appreciate you sharing that. It's inspiring me. I'm getting ready to um, start offering a movement class here. I haven't taught movement in many years, and I'm getting ready again to start teaching movement. And I'm sitting with how we'll be integrating it with my body of work as the book comes out and the cards come out, and how to create spaces where they can do embodied awareness, but also do like group movement in a series over time. And I was just reflecting on Five Rhythms because Five Rhythms is wonderful. Gabrielle Roth. If you guys don't know Five Rhythms, if you're listening, check out Gabrielle Roth. She passed away a couple of years ago, but she's absolutely a pioneer in teaching dancers around the world how to access different qualities of energy through music, the staccato, the flow state, etc. I don't know what the five. Do you remember what the five ones are?
Yes. So yes, there's flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness.
And stillness. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. I remember there was a Beltane event in Asheville back in the day because I lived here and I also lived in the Bay Area in like New York, and those are my three places. But anyway, but there was a Gabrielle Roth group that met, and they were doing their Beltane, and they asked me to come in and do one of those five teaching African dance. So it was like not the staccato, not the flow, the not the chaos, not the stillness. What's the fifth one? What's the other one? I'm putting you on the
Uh,
spot here.
Lyrical.
I don't know. Anyway, they had me come in and do their dance ritual, and it was really, really, really beautiful many years ago. And I appreciate those teachers. Yeah, yeah, good, good. Um, art. Tell me about what kind of art you're inspired to do now. Do you use art through, you had kind of mentioned it in passing, like some of your people, they might go do a ritual or they might like do some art based on how they feel. How do you work with art with your clients in healing? And then are there ways that you could suggest that people can do this at home?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really
Mhm.
love working with my clients. So a lot of my clients like vision boards or intuitive collage is what we kind of do, where they
Yeah.
can collage or collage journal so that there's a mixture of writing and pictures. But the work that I do is really about coming out of Tumulpa is the self-portrait drawings that, kind of a
Mm,
quick drawing. I have a background as a mixed media and found object installation artist. So I always put
mm,
dried flower petals or other objects onto my self-portrait drawings as part
mm,
of that blending of different forms. Or if I do collage, they always have like different wood and metal objects and found objects on
mm,
them. So I really encourage my clients to play around with what they have in their space, what they're drawn to, whether that's objects or specific art mediums. I've worked with watercolor artists who prefer just to use the watercolor paints. I've worked with non-artists who use my own materials, the kind of oil crayons that we use that can blend a
mm.
little bit easier than like colored pencils or crayons. But with the Zoom phenomenon, my online clients, I have to say, use whatever you have, whether if it's
Yeah.
just a colored pen, that's fine, because it's not really about the finished project. It's more about the authentic expression of what's happening for you in the moment, and that
Hmm.
gives us something to explore in that color or in that line or in that texture.
I love it. I love it. I want to do more art. I want to play with more art. I want to encourage my people to do more art. I feel like it gives you something to do. Like today, I had I've been in conversation with a local yoga studio about planning a meditation program. And we just started the conversation. I was very excited about it. And I got an email back and they're like, you could do a 2 hour workshop like next in 2027. And I was honestly, I was a little upset. I didn't even get a chance to like fully present. Like we met about it and this is what we can offer you. And I was a little upset because I have this like incredible, like profound body of work and I'm planning all these ideas in my head. And I was like, really like, oh, I love that community. I was really hoping that it was time. And they didn't say no. They were like, let's just start with that like in a year. And I was a little upset. And I knew we had the interview today and I had to like get my head right, and I was like, "Ooh," and I like let myself whimper. And then I was like, okay, what can I do that is now taking action to like alchemize? The way I see it is that we get to alchemize our stories when we're doing embodiment work. How can I alchemize this grief into something? I have to do something because I wasn't ready to now sit down and spend a half hour editing my book. It just my head wasn't there. It's like, I need
Mhm.
dish soap. I'm gonna walk to Whole Foods. So I just like got in my jacket and they didn't even have the dish soap I wanted. I didn't even get it. But I just walked and I moved my energy and I was like, this walk is the walk that is going to clear anything that I'm feeling that's enabling me to I'm going to alchemize any like subtle self-worth issues or thoughts that things should be different than they are. Like all that stuff just comes like quickly when you do awareness. You're like, what your issue is at the same time you're feeling it. And I was like, and I'm just going to walk it off and I'm going to clear it. And I came back and I put on some lipstick and I was like, I'm good. Like I'm okay. Like it shifts, it leaves, it moves. That's another thing I loved about Anna Pompeido. I'm sorry, I will put her proper name below, I promise. Um, she was saying that people identify with their fear and they identify with their lack of motivation and that fear it just has to move. And that this is somebody who like worked for NYPD, was in 9/11, worked for the FBI. They have them up at 3 a.m. jogging for hours. Like she's a warrior goddess woman. And she was saying how you just do it and it moves out eventually. Like you move it. Now, I don't think we should ignore why we have fear and anxiety. I think we should understand it. You do trauma informed work. I do trauma informed work. We get to understand how to like regulate our nervous systems, but that idea of identifying with your stuff, I think keeps people from being in action. But if we could take those stories and re-alchemize them through one little ritual, a walk, a piece of art, even a bath, a soak, a meditation, flower petal collages, like tea ceremony, like if we consciously do things with intention, then we reprogram our perception, which enables us to take different kinds of action, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little about your work with this book. Tell us about the book that came out and your part in it and what you wrote. Like, don't read exactly all of what you wrote. Although, if you want to read from it, you're welcome to do a little bit of reading from it if you want. I put you on the spot, or we could do that another time, another time. But tell us about the book and what was your part in the book about?
Yeah, so it is a multi-author book called The Modern Day High Priestess. reclaiming our ancient authority as spiritual leaders in today's world. And it's a long title, but I think all the words are important, and part of why I was
Mm,
really drawn to the book was because of that long title, and the idea of just reclaiming what it means to be a priestess, living in our modern contemporary world, and what does it mean to be a leader, what does it mean to be spiritual nowadays. And at the time that I joined, I was working with my friend Christina Gerber, who's a 5D crystalline energy healer, and we were going through a few of my like energy clearings from past lives. And I was also in a shamanic 5 rhythms class, so I was getting all of these downloads because I'm also, a
mm,
medium and a channel, so I can see the past lives. And there was one in particular that came to the forefront of how, when my power was stolen, it
mm,
was sort of in this slaughtering, in this clearing in a forest. And
mm.
I could see my tribe of women. There were like 12 of us, and sometimes we're cats and sometimes we're women, but because of the spiritual soul was represented by these feline personalities, it was this sort of profound tribal primal experience. And
Mm.
I had just lost my first cat. She lived 17 and a half years. I named
Mm.
her Kierkegaard after one of my favorite philosophers, and
Oh,
called her
I'm sorry.
Kiki for short. But she died, and I had just gotten this new kitten named Zara, who is a sovereign being, and her name means like sovereign ruler, and God remembers, and grief, and something about like blossoming into your full self. So I felt like she had a really powerful name for the moment that I was in. And when I
Yeah.
got her, um, I just could feel destiny spinning and my power starting to return. And it was around the time I agreed to write for this book. So I just kind of shared the downloads I received from about that kind of uh,
Mm.
feline tribal slaughter, and mixed it with one of
Wow.
my favorite poems growing up. I have epigraphs, but from Walt Whitman's poem When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed, about sort of,
Mm.
Lincoln dying after the Civil War. And so it's sort of like a tribute to, um, what happens after a slaughtering, the guilt, the grief, the beauty through flowers and lilacs, and a
Mm.
female retelling of that poem.
Mm. Wow. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes. Yeah, please make sure that you send me that link so we could put it in the YouTube notes for people to get the book. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Any final words or sharings that you want to let our listeners know before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I think this has been a great conversation, and I appreciate all the questions. And I feel like, we do such similar work. It's on the same sort of consciousness and integration and trauma informed level. So it's just been wonderful to get to know you more.
Yeah, it's good to get to know you too. I hope we could do a collaboration. It would be really fun to get together when I'm in the Bay Area in, I think, May of this year. And I'm hoping to set up like a little tour with my awakening cards and if the book is ready and a book tour. So maybe we could do a play and do an event or something fun. We should talk about that.
That would be great. Yes, I would love that.
Oh, great. We do have a couple of people. Let's see. We have people in the chat. Do we have people in the chat? Okay. If you guys are listening in the future now, definitely share anything. I do see a couple of comments. Embodied Healing with Sarah says, "Hey, Kelsey, so happy to witness you live." And then Leah Rose Wilson, you got your peeps, says, "I'm very interested in being more fully embodied. Thank you for inviting me, Kelsey." Um, Gabrielle Ross, 5 rhythms are incredible. I'm an incredible 5R teacher, says Embodied Healing with Sarah, who's also your person. And Her body of work is truly transformational. Gabrielle actually passed away 13 years ago. Oh my Lord. I was like, a few years ago. Okay, 13 years. And then she says, find a teacher. Yes, queens. Thank you so much for chiming in. And if y'all chime in the future, we will respond there on the YouTube chat. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
If you guys enjoy if you enjoyed this interview and you want to hear more interviews, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube, or you could check out Kelsey's website. What's your site, Kelsey?
It's dialogicalpersona.com.
We will put that below. And thank you so much. Thank you.